My name is Benjamin Schmid. I'm coming from Dresden, and I'm the last one in this session, and I would like to talk about how to do multi-view deconvolution actually in real time. So we have heard a little bit about deconvolution today by Brian. What this is really about is we have data which was taken from multiple angles, and we would like to fuse them. So the data we are using, hello? Oh. Sorry for that. So the data we are using come from SPIM, so a selective plane illumination microscope. And just briefly, so in SPIM, the sample is usually illuminated from the side. So a thin sheet of light illuminates a single plane in the sample. And the light from that plane is then detected through a detection objective and captured by a camera. So the advantage is that the entire plane is captured at once, so it's incredibly fast compared to confocal, for example. And what's important here is that the sample is usually mounted vertically, so it's straightforward to attach a rotational motor, rotate the sample, and capture images from multiple angles. So, and my talk is about how to fuse the data which is obtained from these angles. So here is a single image, and that's actually not an image how it comes from the camera, but it's a view from top, so it's a cross-sectional plane. And so that's just nuclei from a zebrafish embryo. And the detection axis is vertical here, which you can easily see due to these nuclei being elongated vertically. Which is because the axial resolution in SPIM, as in many other microscopy techniques, is worse than the lateral resolution. Now, we can take another view, this time orthogonally to the first one, so the elongation is in the other direction. And the goal is now to improve the bad axial resolution of a single view with a good lateral resolution of a complementary view. So, and you can do this in easy ways. You can just average them, or you can do it a little bit more sophisticated and take a weighted average. So both of these methods are fast, but the quality you get is quite limited, as you can see. So basically, now you don't have blur in one direction, not just in one direction, but in as many directions as you have views. So you don't really improve it. So if you want to get high quality results, you need to do some kind of multi-view deconvolution. So that's so the quality you get is much better than what we had before. But the downside to it is that it also takes incredibly long. So as we've heard from Brian today, deconvolution is slow, and multi-view deconvolution especially is slow. So our goal here was really to combine the speed of these methods here with the quality of this, and make it so compatible to real-time processing. So the work which I'm showing you is based on Stefan Breibisch's work about multi-view deconvolution. And so what is the problem with 3D multi-view deconvolution? When I used his plugin, I oftentimes ran into out-of-memory errors. So I was pretty annoyed by that, and I sat down and calculated actually the memory requirements, so that these are theoretical values. And as you can see, so even if it's a mid-sized data set, with 1,000 pixels in each dimension, and we just have, for example, 4 views, we need 100 gigabyte, which is quite a lot. So if you compare that to the typical memory size of a high-end PC, which might be 128, we are at the limit. So if we increase the image size, or we increase the numbers of views, we will actually go beyond that. So the other thing is processing time. So processing 2 views of a 1,000 by 1,000 by 1,000 pixel data set takes 23 minutes. The acquisition of such a data set takes maybe 20 seconds. So there's a huge difference, and well, that's just not comparable. So what people often have done when they needed to accelerate the problem is that they port it to the GPU if that's possible. So, and here it is indeed possible because deconvolution, so this is based on Richardson-LOCI deconvolution, and that can be easily parallelized. However, the memory available on the GPU is even more limited. So typical sizes are 6 gigabytes. Nowadays you can get 12 gigabytes, but that's by far not enough to for these problems. Nevertheless, GPU computing has been introduced to multi-view deconvolution. However, the speed up is quite limited, so it's threefold in best cases, and this is mainly because the data has to be subdivided into blocks, and the data has to be copied forth and back to the graphics card, which kills performance. So, but now if we go one step back and we think about, so this is 3D deconvolution, and do we really need that? So we don't really need to deconvolve to improve the XY resolution. Our goal is primarily to improve the Z resolution, and that leads me to the basic idea of my work here. So, and this is to do the deconvolution not in 3D but in 2D, and namely in the plane which contains all the bad Z resolutions. So this is nicely shown in this little animation here. So first of all, we capture multi-view data, and then we reslice the data into planes which are orthogonal to the rotation axis, and you can see that these planes contain all the bad Z resolutions, and then we process these planes independently. So, and this reduces the memory requirements dramatically. So don't get fooled by the logarithmic scale. So you can see even for the highest data size, it's much beyond the 6 gigabyte limit of the GPU. So this allows us to implement it on the GPU. Now I don't want to go into this, but I just would like to mention one key aspect. So everybody who has done GPU computing before knows that the key point is really to be careful with the memory management. So memory transfers from the host computer to the GPU usually kills the performance because that is expensive. So what people usually do is that they interleave the memory transfers with GPU computing. And we actually took that one step further, and we not only interleave it with memory transfer to the GPU, but also with disk I/O. So this means while we are processing one plane on the GPU, the previous plane is copied back from the GPU to the main memory and saved to disk. And the next plane is loaded from disk and copied onto the GPU. So this gives us a huge performance improvement. So instead of 23 minutes, we get it down to 35 seconds. And this makes it actually compatible with real-time processing. So just showing some results here. So while I'm scrolling through these planes, so again, that's a top view. I'm sure you won't be able to spot any differences, but So once the movie stops, you get a close-up and you can actually see it's not identical. But still, I think the quality is good enough to justify for the, well, the speed improvement is so high that it justifies for the quality, well, yeah. So if I got you interested, everything is basically on GitHub. So the source code and the documentation. Also the Fiji plugins, but for the Fiji plugins, there's actually an easier way because there exists a Fiji update site so that you can install it easily. And if you want to know more about the details, you can read it in the paper. And with that, I would like to thank our group in Dresden, and I would like to thank you, and I'm happy to take questions.